Welcome to Real Rockford Files, for tales of the paranormal, supernatural, and the flat-out unbelievable. Today I'm going to be sharing ghost stories from Illinois. Let's get into it. Story 1. In the summer of 2009, I was visiting Chicago for a work trip and stayed at the historic Hilton Chicago across from Grant Park. My sister also lives in Chicago, and my trip coincided with her bachelorette party. After work on a Friday evening, I had dinner with my sister and two of her friends. I distinctly remember only having one glass of wine at dinner, since the next night would likely include more drinking at the bachelorette party. After dinner, I went back to the hotel and fell asleep. While sleeping, I started having a vivid dream. I was stuck in an elevator. The elevator stopped working. I tried using the intercom to call the operator. The operator started screaming at me through the intercom. It sounded like a cacophony of multiple voices screaming. Suddenly, I woke up. My heart was racing, and that's when I realized being stuck in the elevator was a dream, and the voices that were screaming at me were actually coming from the hallway. A group of people walking through the hallway were being ridiculously loud. Reality hit me that I had been woken up, and I remember feeling very annoyed and thinking I probably won't be able to fall back to sleep. I was curled up in the fetal position on my right side. I flipped over to my left side so I could see the time on the digital clock. It was 4 a.m. Central Time. I sighed, feeling anxious about whether or not I'd be able to fall back to sleep. I then rolled from the fetal position onto my back, and that's when I saw it. Standing at the foot of the bed, directly in front of me, was a man. This man was not completely solid, but more solid than an apparition. I could make out every single detail on this man's face, but there was definitely a low-key glow radiating through him. To this day, I could spot this man in a lineup. His hair was reddish and thinning, high cheekbones, faint mustache, pointy nose. He was wearing a cut-off Celtics jersey. He was staring at me and smiling slightly, creepy in a "I'm standing in your hotel room staring at you" creepy way, but not overly creepy. I did not sense this person to be evil, but I was still scared. We stared at each other for what felt like 5 minutes, but was probably 10 to 20 seconds. My thought process during this time went something like this. Did one of those people in the hallway break into my room? No, this doesn't feel like a real person. This feels like a ghost. Maybe it's my guardian angel. Shouldn't my guardian angel be wearing something nicer than a cut-off jersey? Am I having one of those sleep paralysis moments? Can I move? If it's a ghost, wouldn't he have left by now? He's still staring at me. It must be a real person. Oh my God, there's someone in here. At that moment, I decided this person was real. I sat up in bed and screamed while staring directly at this guy, and all of a sudden, right before my eyes, he just faded away, almost like pixels dissolving into the air. I'm still sitting in the same spot, breathing heavily. While sitting, I started looking around the room because I was still confused about what had just happened. The door to the bathroom was slightly ajar, and as I looked into the dark doorway, I saw his face again, staring right back at me. We locked eyes, and then once again, he just faded away like pixels. I've never been so scared in my life. I felt incapable of moving or doing anything. I was so scared. I curled up under the bed covers, completely awake for the next hour. Eventually, I grabbed my cell phone off the nightstand and called my boyfriend. It was 6 a.m. in New York at that point. He didn't answer. Eventually, I got up and went to yoga in the park with my boss that morning and told her the entire story. Then I asked two different hotel employees if they ever heard any stories, and they said no. I can't imagine that is true given the historic nature of the hotel. Later that morning, I talked to my boyfriend, and he said it was probably a remote viewer who was just having some fun going into different hotel rooms. I don't know what it was, but I know it happened. Story 2. It was the year 2016 that I moved into a new home, a beautiful turn-of-the-century brick mansion overviewing the local Decatur Lake in central Illinois. This house was so large it was sanctioned into a triplex, dividing it into 3 apartments. The main floor was my home. Soon after the move, we noticed things falling and getting knocked off the table or couch when we weren't in the room. This happened a lot. I would walk into the kitchen and boom, something fell into the living room. It was strange, but we didn't really think much about it. About a month after moving in, I took a shower in the middle of the day. Just as I finished and flung open the shower curtain, my hairdryer across the room turned on simultaneously. How weird. I was slightly creeped out by this, but figured maybe it is the old house having electrical issues. Maybe the moisture in my shower sparked something. Maybe static electricity. I was definitely creeped out, but still did not feel the need to tell anyone and brushed it off as a coincidence. 2 days later, at 2 a.m., my boyfriend got up to pee while I was dead asleep. I was woken by a horribly loud rattling and clunking sound that lasted about 4 seconds, followed by my boyfriend's loud cursing. I shot up in the bed yelling, "What the hell was that?" My boyfriend was panting and noticeably spooked. He said he was just taking a leak, half asleep, when out of nowhere, his electrical travel razor that was sitting on top of the porcelain water reservoir turned on. The vibration and the rattling on the tank was ear-numbingly loud at 2 a.m. in the morning. Damn near gave me a heart attack. I didn't touch it or anything. I was just peeing and it started buzzing. Look, it isn't even plugged into the wall. How the hell does this even happen? I immediately had shivers down my spine. The hairdryer, I haven't even told him yet. The hairdryer turns on for me. The razor turns on for him. How creepy is this? My boyfriend and I were not really into paranormal things or believed in ghosts, but here we were, thoroughly creeped out in this old brick building. To make things more eerie, we found swastikas and iron cross tiles embedded around the old fireplace, which was a very strange thing to find in 2016. During one night at around 2 to 3 a.m., we were both dead asleep and woken by an extremely loud bang inside our room. It was so loud, my boyfriend shot up in his sleep and had his gun in his hand within a few seconds. If I had to describe the bang, it sounded as if someone had a large sack of heavy boots and dropped them from the ceiling to the floor. It was loud. The light switch was right above my head, and as I switched it on, I was expecting to see disarray. Something broken or fallen on the floor, something knocked over, but there was nothing, absolutely nothing. Not a thing out of order. We could never figure out what in the world made this loud bang. As the months passed, my boyfriend and I broke up and lived there alone. At night, I frequently noticed that right at the moment I was drifting into sleep, I would be woken by what felt like screaming directly into my ear, and it was accompanied by what felt like electrical jolts in my brain. It felt very wrong, violent, and as if I was being attacked. These electric jolts almost felt like a seizure activity, and I started to worry that maybe I had developed a seizure disorder or a brain tumor. A month or so later, I had a date over for the first time. We were sitting on the couch talking when he suddenly interrupted me and said, "I'm sorry, I don't want to seem weird or freak you out, but I can't focus like this. Do you by any chance believe in ghosts or spirits?" I looked at him with a blank stare. He didn't know any of the weird things that had been happening since I moved in, so I answered, well, not really, but since I moved in, some weird things have happened that kind of make me wonder. He smiled and said, "I really hope I don't deter you or make you think I'm nuts, but I have been able to see spirits since I've been little, and you definitely have one here. Female. She's standing on your porch right now." He looked uneasy and pointed at the screened-in porch. I think all the blood had drained out of my face at this point. I was so shook at what this stranger in my house just said. He continued to tell me that she is wearing a bathrobe and she used to live here. 50s, maybe 60s, he said. She died here in the bathroom, suicide in the bathtub. I was just flabbergasted at this point. So as soon as he said all that, I started telling him about all the things that have happened since I moved in, and he validated all those occurrences as most certainly her doing. Shortly after I moved out of the house and into a small one-bedroom lake house across the lake, I never felt the strange electric jolts in my twilight sleep again, and never had any electric objects turn on or off, or have things constantly falling to the floor. This only occurred in that house. The same guy had told me about the female spirit came and visited me about a month or two after I moved out. He told me how much he liked my new place, and how it is much better and healthier place for me to live in. He continued to tell me that he didn't want to make me uncomfortable or anxious at the time, but he is so glad that I'm out of that place. There was a darkness at this old house, and the female spirit was not friendly. She wished me harm. I was never a believer in ghosts or spirits, but after this experience, I'm 100% sure the place was haunted. Before I move on to the next story, I would like to point out that a majority of my viewers aren't subscribed. If you can just take a moment and hit that subscribe button, maybe click like or leave a comment, it'll go a long way in helping me fight the algorithm. You can always take it back later, and it's totally free. Now, back to the stories. Story 3. It was January 2nd, 2018. It was really cold out, like 6 degrees. I really had to go to the store. My roommate was sick, so I bundled up good and began the 3-block trek to the nearest mom and pop store, hoping they'd have what we desperately needed. About a block into my walk, a car started creeping alongside me. I glanced over but didn't recognize it or the driver, who was clearly staring at me. I told myself I was being paranoid as every red flag in my brain began waving. I'm aware because of my stature and being so bundled up, he might have mistaken me for a young girl. Most 12-year-olds are taller than me. On the other hand, he might be just looking for an address, or debating if I was someone he knew, or just thinking of being nice and offering a lift. He pulled to a stop at the intersection and poked his head out. If my flags were waving, they were now screaming danger at me. Something was way off, way off, especially when he opened the door and stepped out. Now it gets really weird. I stopped dead in my tracks, debating which way to run if the need arises, as I'm between houses. No way was I getting within an arm's length of this guy. I could smell the booze from where I was. He was saying something about it being too cold to walk, and he'd be glad to give me a ride. I shook my head, saying no thanks. He got insistent, taking a step towards me. I feel my weight shift as my hands curl into loose fists. I said no thanks. As I took a step back, while my mind feverishly plotted a flight path, and my muscles ready to fight, he staggers closer. Come on, I'm just being nice. Get in the car. I sidestepped and growled, leave me alone, my eyes looking for traffic or signs of life nearby, while staring him down. Silently I prayed, God, if I can't outrun him, please let me be able to kick his ass. Suddenly, out of nowhere, I hear someone call my name. Both our heads jerked in that direction. A young man was approaching, wearing a black leather jacket and the kind of jeans we used to call chinos. His hair was slicked back. Looking at someone who looks like they stepped out of a tough guy 50s film is one thing, but looking at one who knows your name and looks like your brother once did is another, especially when the brother would be near 70 years old, a double amputee living states away and died 3 years ago. In that moment, I didn't care how illogical it was. Richard! There was that same smile that somehow didn't show his teeth but flashed a dimple. He's still maybe 2 feet away, but he says, "Problem, Val?" I ran to him even as my mind said this couldn't be. That other guy is wasting no time leaving. I forced myself to look at his license plate, and in that instant, my brother disappeared. I finished going to the store, and from there I called the cops and reported that driver. Maybe he was just a drunk trying to be nice, but if it summoned help like that, I think the intent was much worse. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories. Hope you enjoyed.